In this video, we're going to create a simple WCF service to insert data to the SQL Server. First step, we're going to open Visual Studio. We're going to create a new project. Here we will select WCF and we have to choose the option WCF Service Application. So select that option and hit Next. I will give the project name as WCF Database Service and I will click on Create. It's same WCF service, just we are inserting database to it. So we already have our default WCF application where we have an interface and we have a class where we're going to implement the interface. So what is our idea? We're going to insert data to a SQL Server database. So let's create a database and table in our SQL Server. So we will go to our SQL Server. So let's create a new database. So what are the steps? We will go to SQL Server Management Studio. We'll click on database, right click, new database, and we will provide the name as WCF test DB. Hit OK. So if you see here now in the database section, we have a new database called WCF test DB. What we're going to do, I'm going to create a simple table called registration table with 4 fields: username, password, country and email. Okay, so I'm going to select on this database and I'm going to click on right click, new query. In this query window, I'm going to paste the simple table creation SQL query and hit on execute. So if you see now, once it says query executed successfully. So if we see now in tables option, I should be seeing a table called dbo.registration table. So this is the table which we're going to use to insert our data. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. We're going to clean all this option here. So we have now our interface implementation with no code, and let's go to our interface. For this application, what we're going to do, we're going to create a service to insert data to SQL, and then we need a data contract here, because when we send the data, it's not a simple integer or float or string. It's a combination of data. It's a composite data type. So we will be having service contract, operation contract and data contract. So let's use them. I already wrote the code. I'll just paste it here so that you can follow through. You can just enter the code. So first step, we will need a data contract. So I created a data contract. The data contract is very simple, because if you remember, in the database we have username, password, country and email. These are the 4 fields as string. So I created a data contract class called user details and had the 4 fields, and then set their getters and setters so that they can be accessible. So this is my data contract. The UI or any service gonna get data in this format. So we need to create this data contract first. Perfect. So I'm going to create a new service contract. So if you can see, this service contract is insert user details service, and what it takes the data contract what we created, user details, and it inserts it to the database. That will be the body of the method, but the signature says it will take a user details and it will provide a string for a successful or failure insertion. Let's go ahead and write its implementation. So we go to our service 1. Perfect. So what should be this implementation? The implementation has few steps. First step will be to connect to the SQL Server database. Second step will be to get the user data. And the third step will be to insert the data to the SQL Server database. And the last step will be to close the connection. So if you see now, we have our signature entered here, the method insert user details. So what we are doing at the beginning, we have first string message declared. Then next step is to create a connection, and we created our connection here. Next step is to open the connection. Next step is to write the SQL command. Next, it takes all these input values which will be passed through this user info variable. Next, it goes ahead and hits the message, gets a message user info, the details inserted successfully or unsuccessfully. So it's a simple way. Why do we do what? We create first a connection. Data source is the name of our server. Initial catalog is the name of our database. So our database name is WCF testdb. Next is our username, and the last is the password what we have kept there. Perfect. So let's build our application now. We can see it succeeded build. Let's test from here if it is working or not. Let's check. So we will go here debug and choose option start without debugging. Now this provides a very interesting interface where we can just choose, click our method, insert user details, and you can see all the 4 fields are there. Let me write something. Very strong password I put there. If everything is okay, this interface will be called right now, and this data will be stored to the SQL Server database. Let's test it now. Do you see? It says message, hello, details inserted successfully. So let's check in our SQL Server database. We have this DBO registration table, and click select top 1000 rows. So you can see now the data what we entered from there is present in the SQL database. Thank you.